I'm having the time of my life getting to speak with a number of very distinguished Russians who have made great contribution as patriots to the country. And we got one of those with us here today, General Apti Alaudinov. General Alaudinov is a hero of Russia, but I've also had the chance to sit with him in private. He is a good and decent man, a man of high morality. And so, General, thank you for being with me today.
Thank you. Always welcome.
All right, so we've got a lot to talk about. Let's start with the latest breaking news. Overnight, Donald Trump announced that they're going to impose more oil sanctions on Russia and that declared that Russia must agree to an immediate ceasefire. How did you react to that news?
First of all, we have to, for ourselves, understand that the presidents of such great powers like America and Russia, they have to be always very dedicated and level-headed. The president of Russia, he goes with one line, and he doesn't go off left or right.
Yeah.
It's his straight road. He's got the objective, he's got the target, and he goes towards it. Concerning presidents of America as the previous one and today's, it surprises that this agenda is changing. And they want to have a fight, they want to have a peace, or they want to have a fight. At the same day, in the morning he has a bad mood, he makes a bad decision. He has a good mood, he has a good decision. Today he says, I'm going to impose sanctions, I'm going to give guns to Ukraine. And in this light, to speak to Americans, real Americans, we have to understand that if you take regular nations, peoples, Americans and Russians, we don't need confrontation. We don't need war. I know that the society, in any society, a person, they have one thing to care. They don't want to be killed. They want to have good food. They want to have a good house, raise their children, to have a healthy, good life and family. And today the politics, as we speak about, in the European countries and everywhere, it took a globalist face, maybe a status that they change one president to another. It's completely nothing. And the agenda could be changing a little bit, left or right, shaking, but at the end it'll bring to the same place where the previous president and before him would come to. Of course, in this light, we want Americans understand for themselves that we are not a state that is going to take somebody over. Russia is a state, has 1/6 of planet of Earth. We have plenty of land for ourselves. We have all the resources. We're a wealthy, rich state. We have only one care. As a state, we don't want somebody to take our sovereignty. We don't want somebody, rockets, nuclear warheads of NATO bloc would be by our threshold, 500 kilometers away from Moscow. We don't want that. And the president of Russia, all this time, even from 2007, he called NATO bloc, the head of United States and Europe, that they would stop, that they would not move close to our fence, to our house. And as we see, nobody wanted to hear us. And today, when they blame us on something, that we don't want to stop the war, or we have not started the war. It was started, the General Secretary Nuland of the United States, Soros, who paid billions of dollars to make a revolution on Ukraine territory, change the legal power there, and they bring to power people who are for them, manipulated. They manipulate those people. They do what they say do. They tune up the state against them. They gave the guns to those people and brought that state in a position where, starting from 2014, Ukrainian state killing dozens and dozens and hundreds of people in the Russian-speaking regions. Us, we had to come and help to our brothers. And of course, a situation when Ukrainian resource was pumped there, they attempted not to hold Russia to have peaceful coexistence, but to create attack, assault, and we know about that. And in this case, this war, it's a reason of that connection of the activities that were done by American state and the NATO bloc. And of course, Trump wants that Russia and Ukraine would not fight. They have to make their own decision on a person who is appointed at the Ukrainian territory, and theirs. Just take a decision, make a decision upon that person, and the war will be finished one day. You can't make us walk away from the goals and objectives that we put on just because you make us do so. If we have a territory that are constitutionally Russian, that Russian president said so, take out your military out of there, that's it, and we'll close that question. The longer the conflict goes on, the more people dies, but the longer we have this conflict, the less we will have on the opposite side conditions that they want to dictate to us so we'll have an agreement. Of course, we want this war to finish very soon. We don't want people to die, neither our people nor Ukrainians. Of course, the situation in Ukraine is so that internet, the data has leaked. Well, we know 6 months ago, the losses on the Ukrainian side were the people who got lost, and these are the same people that died. 1.7 million people. Today, Ukrainian people, they're put at the side, at the point of being just not there, just deleted. It's not Russia's fault. These are the states that push in Ukraine to fight. Continue war, giving guns, making it continue the mobilization. If you want to have peace, they just have to give the guns and make them fight against Russia. The war will be over.
Yeah. You know, one of the, I don't want to call it a criticism or one of the critiques that's presented in the West that I fight against. They claim that, oh, the Russian military is so weak, they're so overmatched because they haven't taken much territory. They took, you know, in the first 6 weeks, they had 22% of Ukraine. Now they only have 19%. You know, all of that's a lie because they calculate with the entire landmass. And many of these are these generals, you know, Petraeus, Jack Keane, Ben Hodges, Admiral Stavridis, who is head of NATO. And I've always responded saying, they have no place to talk. They fought in Afghanistan for 20 years, and they weren't fighting a military peer force. They weren't fighting a military that had tanks, that had armored vehicles, that had drones, that had overhead intelligence from NATO. They were fighting goat herders. It's no insult to goat herders, but people who were carrying Kalashnikovs. They had a few mortars. They had a few maybe heavy machine guns. They didn't have tanks. They didn't have artillery. And yet the United States, with all of its military strength, was unable to defeat that. So if I could get you an introduction to President Trump, I can't necessarily, but if I could, and you could sit down and brief him and explain, let me explain to you why Russia has done what it's done in Donetsk, that we haven't done mass human wave assaults, that we haven't unnecessarily put the lives of our soldiers at risk. What would you tell him?
All this I've heard. Those people that are sitting up there on the chairs and they think that Russian army is weak, I would say one thing. Russian army had a proxy war with Ukraine. Proxy war through Ukraine. We had whole bloc of NATO, United States as a state, and all European countries. They all fought with us through Ukrainian army. If you talk about the strength of the spirit, the strongest spiritual army, I mean the spirit of the heart, that's Russian number one, and number two is Ukrainian. And Ukrainians were fighting, they think that they were fighting those goalkeepers, you said, wearing sandals. They're great warriors. You guys, special forces. I respect that, but Ukrainian army lost that status of the army number one. It doesn't have it. Why? Because you fighting those people that were wearing sandals decided that the whole war is just like that. Going after two Arabs or two Afghanistans and bomb them with some kind of planes or your drones. Today the war has completely different form. Our divisions of the Ministry of Defense of Russia, for today, they're most powerful. They have the biggest experience of how to have military action and fighting against the whole bloc of NATO united that were throwing all the weaponry they could that was available. Everything they had, all these tanks and guns, shuttle. You have given to Ukraine army everything. If somebody would say, by fighting with one of the resources of the state, Russia, against all those other countries in system bloc, but soldiers, doesn't matter who uses those guns. I can tell you that if with the same weapons that NATO bloc would fight us, we would just, we wouldn't even talk. They would be just all destroyed.
Right.
We know exactly for a long time what is the price for everybody in this war. You cannot value us in such a way that we are not making big steps or quick attacks or moving forward. Let them count what is the number of our army and take a look. This number, what is like 1.5 million, more or less.
Right.
But the point is that if you look and around Russia, they have NATO bloc. We have a possibility from this number of people hold the resources to keep the militaries NATO on the perimeter of our borders and control them. We have to protect our borders. And out of that mass, count how many divisions in number of people we have at the front line.
Right.
So it comes out that today, even in this state, we fight by one hand. Russia as a state fighting one hand. Because we had one mobilization, 300,000. Look what happened at Ukrainian territory, how many they mobilized, what losses they have. As a state, we don't think that we should throw 1 million people in for them to die to get a goal. More, we understand that this will not be our victory, strategical victory, because as soon as we start this attacking operation, we will carry great casualties to move forward and take over something. Question: would that be a solution to finish this war? No, of course not. So the president of Russia, Mr. Putin, every decision that he takes, he measures not the military victory at certain point. He today measures it by the situation inside the country and the external situation with the bloc of NATO and the countries that are still in allies with us, that want to be friends with us. He measures every step, even today. We go forward every day. Step by step, we take over the military forces of our opponent. And there are a lot of people who were hired in those divisions. We know that those people were from military, from Polacks, Americans, Brits, Germans. Just count how many were there and how many were able to go back home alive. Any collision we showed in the spirit and the preparedness. There's nobody equals to Russian people. I would advise to all these great, smart people, so-called, they could not even finish any operation they had except for the killing civilians. I would recommend them wait. In reality, what took place? And the mistakes that were spoken that Russia would fall apart. Economies fall apart. That's it. But we remember the things by Barack Obama. And every president, step by step, he thinks it's a smart thing to do. They know it all, and Russia's going to fall apart.
Right.
But as you see, we can say 2024 GDP of Russian Federation has grown up 3.5%. That didn't happen even in a peaceful time. It's not that we're falling apart. Instead, we're developing. The economy is developing, and to say that we have no ability to have war because we don't have the money, finances, I think it's dumb, foolish. China, India, they will buy from us oil, gas, and other resources. Even now, European countries, they cannot refuse fully from our resources. So, trying to put us on the knees, trying to cut our economy, tear it apart. Europe is on the knees. Fully, they don't have fully all the whole economy. That's Europe, lost economy. First economy, number one, Germany. In principle, it's in a state of despair. It's going to blow up. And other countries are in the same state. So in this case, those that analyze somewhere far away, sitting at their houses, the situation on some internet resources, making the conclusions that we're going to fall apart today or tomorrow, that we cannot lead the war, at least one time, like you, come to Russia. Let them talk. Let them discuss. Well, they see what we have on the shelves in the store.
Right.
They say that we're hungry here. Let them come and take a look. We live a lot better than Americans. So what takes place now in America, a great country, a great economy, they put it in such condition and state that it is America today. It's at the stage of civil war. And with this rhythm, the heads of the European and America state that in their countries will start having a civil war. And believe me, they won't have enough time for us.
Well, I've joked that, in the West they're saying Russia, for example, is running because of the effectiveness of Ukrainian strikes on refineries, that Russia is running out of gasoline and that there are long lines at the gasoline stations. And I've been saying, I wish that was true because I've sat in so many traffic jams with all these cars on the road that it's just, I mean, it exposes that as a lie. When did you, or let's say the Russian military, become aware that you were draining NATO? Because I imagine at the start of the special military operation in February of 2022, there was naturally an assumption that perhaps NATO was stronger and more capable than it actually turned out to be, because we saw by the summer of 2023 with the failed counteroffensive and NATO's inability to continue to supply artillery shells to sustain, they couldn't even maintain a rate of fire to compete with what Russia was unleashing. At what point did you and your colleagues start saying, wait a second, this is, they're not as tough as we thought they were. They're not as strong as we thought they were. Or did that happen?
We have to understand one thing, acknowledge one thing, that Americans have strong weapons.
Yeah.
Very pointed, that we know. That America has great guns, great artillery, great drones and planes. The mistake of NATO bloc, America and European heads of the state, those all was fighting against some kind of men in sandals that were taking care of the sheep. You have never fought with a real army like Russian. You've never fought it, and your enlightening comes at that moment when you will acknowledge to your own self that all the past time you were running after sandal guys and shepherds against whom that weapon that you had was finishing the war.
Right.
In the beginning, of course, we thought that when we got into the war, we had to do that. In the beginning, we thought that we still would be at the certain stages we would have some kind of agreement as a state. And if you look at the rhetorics, that was, for myself from the very beginning, I always said, whatever America and NATO bloc would give to Ukraine, there is no strength that can take over Russian army. I said always, God is with us. We are focused on God. If we need to drink from the mud pile and eat grass, but we will fight and we will never give up. You don't have to compare us with some kind of shepherds in some kind of states. You can compare them and put us in one line. We have our guns, we have our industrial complexes. You remember in the beginning of war, everybody said they shot 3 rockets. That's it, they don't have any more rockets. They made 10 shots, they don't have any more shots to make. So somebody who was sitting there was evaluating what we have, what we don't have. And as a state, our own economy, we have put on the rails of provision, providing our military needs. Our plans start working. The tanks, the machinery, anything. We have that. And we have to understand for ourselves that the state that has so many plants, oil refineries, that state has a very serious reserves of oil, gas, diesel. Even if you take out everything, we're able to fight with our own reserves as long as possible, till we make new ones. If we talk about guns, same story. That the whole weapons that we produce at the plants in America, in Europe, that is all directed to Europe, to go for the trial, testing. We fix it all. We learn what they provide. We understand that. Now the question, even with calculating all of this, is there Ukrainian groups that are supported by the NATO, that they cannot break the situation, they cannot stop our progress forward? Then what are you saying? Russian army weak? The losses that times more than Ukrainian losses. Every day we move forward. Every day we take 1, 2 villages or so. Our losses are times lesser than Ukrainian army. And you as military people need to understand that any assault activity, that's 1, 2, 3, the formula, even in that format, that carry the least losses, and continue to move forward. And there's another nuance. You said it correctly. We have emptied all the warehouses of the NATO bloc.
Yeah.
Today, if they find any global war, you won't be able to cover your own needs.
Right.
You might have guns for like a short period of time because your plants, your industry is not able to produce as much guns in such a short period of time like Russians. So what I would offer again to all those hotheads that are trying to push something, and Trump also, we have to understand that if there is a hot face in the war, bloody face, Americans to think that they are overseas and everything goes well and that they would catch nothing. It's a great lie. Russia has such guns now that they have not equal to any other. And you, as Americans, you know that, especially your generals. You had great navy, greatest in the world. That was your biggest visit card.
But you saw how we did with the Houthis, right? The Houthis drove us out of the Red Sea.
100% right. Imagine this great navy that entered raid navy, Houthis that were in sandals. They made the navy leave.
Yeah.
And now imagine, compare us to these Houthis. These are good warriors.
Yeah.
They do what they need to do, not looking back. But now Russia. I had a conversation with my friend Scott Ritter. Our first meeting, and when we started having a conversation, I told him one thing: Scott, in your doctrine, you have details. Any war will finish if you have serious losses. That's just written in your law. Now imagine your navy, they come to the territory where they will touch military touch with Russia. And Russia has some rockets like Kinjal.
Yeah.
Others, Zircon, Oreshnik. These rockets out of these big boats that you have about 4,000 to 5,000 people.
Yeah.
It just becomes it's a target that will be destroyed in seconds, 1 or 2 hours actually. You don't have such guns and you don't have such protection to protect your navy. This is our weapon, these rockets. So we have a question. You hold fists in your pants. You show us the feast, not showing the feast, trying to scare us. Don't need to scare us. Don't scare us. We've been scared by a whole history for the Russian state.
Yeah.
We had Sweden, came, scared us. What happened to Sweden? Where's Sweden? Then Polacks came. What happened to Polacks? Mongols. What happened? The closest story, French, Napoleon War. Russians came to his house and put him on the knees, all his army. Then we had Hitler. What happened to Hitler? Russians went to Hitler, put him on the knees, and his army. And today, if they don't leave us alone, we're going to have to come to the house and visit them. Who doesn't leave us alone? Again, I repeat, we don't have a situation when we're going to raise our hands and surrender. Economy or weapons, we're ready to go till the end. And that's what Putin says all the time. That's why I respect him. This is why I greatly respect him, and he's greatly respected by the people that are fighting. We are ready to go till the end. And I have a question. American soldiers from NATO, are they ready to go after the leaders that you have today? That every day they have a mood. I don't love, I do love. Love, not love, like with a flower. I will put on sanctions, I won't put on sanctions. Wait a minute. We have to treat each other seriously. And only in this case we can have an agreement, a line that for us would be peace. Of course, we want to have a peaceful life, grow our children, so we would have everything in order to go in our streets, take a walk, take a stroll outside. But if the question stays that we're gonna have to fight, we will fight till the end. And believe me, in that war, your governments will not be victorious. There's no more dominative area for America. Today, China and others, they have the resources where America is very far away. And Russia today has the biggest and the best army, the strongest army, they have the best experience, and a resource that would allow us to fight, you name, whoever you name it, as long as we need to.
Yeah, I don't know if you're aware or not of the losses that the United States sustained in World War II. Not trying to trick you, but I just want, do you know how many U.S. soldiers died in the European theater by chance? It's not a common knowledge thing, but what I'm dealing with is the perception versus the reality.
I don't know the numbers. I don't remember.
So let me, only 189,000 U.S. soldiers died in North Africa, Europe campaign. Another 110,000 died in the Pacific theater. And then they had about 130,000 that died from accidents, sickness. My point in this is take, 470,000, that's like half of what Russia lost just at the Battle of Stalingrad. And my point in this is that the United States has never really suffered the pain like Russia did of losing 27 million people. And instead, war became profitable. It became a way to make money. And we did make money without having to really pay in blood. Yeah, there were a few who died, but the majority didn't. And I maintain that that's one of the reasons the United States is so cavalier when it comes to war, whereas Russia is deadly serious.
Yes, you have to say that you cannot compare the two. You just can't compare.
Yeah.
At the same time, the rewriting of the history.
Yeah.
Again, people in America, they put into some kind of confusion because, again, there will be a harvest an aftermath. Americans have to understand reality of the past, reality of the present, and reality of the future. In this case, the population of America would make America make right decisions. The state. When Americans will find out that they are not protected by the beginning of the hot-face war fight on NATO bloc, that they will not be protected from the rockets from Russia. In that case, they're going to think. They're going to sit down and take a thought. And to realize that even the war, World War II, that we speak about, that Americans lost 400 and something thousand people.
Right.
And America started war. At what stage? After Soviet Union already stood its place, kept its place, and it was fully understood that they will win, and Soviet Union was already going ahead, and only then Britain and America joined.
Yeah.
Today they rewrite the history. They tell people that you have won World War II. You have joined, you've held Soviet Union. Thank you very much, good job. But the major sufferings were in the Soviet Union part against Hitler. Major resources were spent by Soviet Union against Hitler's Germany. And Soviet Union was already going for victory, going forward. You've joined, great job, but even in this case, you didn't carry much suffering. And this was the war when we were able to fight on the Europe territory.
Yeah.
Yes, after that, Americans took and thrown 2 nuclear weapons, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But still, Americans and Japanese are told that these 2 bombs were thrown, there would be some kind of other, whatever, so-named sacrifices. What sacrifice are you talking about? That even in this case, America, first time in the history of the human race, they threw in 2 bombs.
Yeah.
And now is a question. You have to understand one thing, that anything would come back. Whatever you sow, you will reap.
Yeah.
And how Americans are ready that this would come back, the boomerang would come back if they get involved with Russia. Are they ready for that?
Yeah.
Are they ready?
No.
Drink from the mud pile and go to the end? They're not ready, I know that. You love sweet life for way too much. And we love we can go for death as much as you can go for life, because we know that we are the military that is protecting the interests and the values that are given to us by God. And in this case, this position, we are stronger than anybody else, because we base what we do on our love for God.
Yeah.
And I think that any American who would hear that, they will think before they would go anywhere and scream, hey, we need to punish Russia, we need to punish Russia. Trump will support you. And when Trump will hear that he does not have such a support behind his back, and that Trump is screaming that we have to make great America great again. Yes, America was great, but it lost its greatness because in power in America we had people who were not able to analyze the situation.
Yeah.
They say that shouldn't be any powers, only American, that you have to dictate the terms, the conditions, who needs to get up, drink, stand up, and etc. And based on that, you had way too many conflicts where you spent too much resources.
Yeah. Trillions.
Да, все правильно. Yes, America now, if there's such a situation, America is a bankrupt state. The state debt of America,
Yeah,
36 or something trillion dollars.
37 trillion, and the debt to GDP ratio is 127%. By contrast, Russia's debt to GDP ratio is 19%. That makes your point.
So there's a question. Any American, they need to look at the debt. That's it.
They should. They should. They should look at it.
So I do hope that healthy thinking of the majority, the people cannot be bad as a whole nation. They always want to live a peaceable life, go to work, make money, wake up in the morning with their loved ones, or have a cup of coffee, have a piece of bread, and enjoy your work, going that they will come back and his or her house will be there. They want to raise their children. Every nation has that. You have to wake up and make it that the head of the state would wake up, both America and Europe.
But you know, when you trained your soldiers, and if you asked them to do push-ups, or if you asked them to do pull-ups, and they could barely do that, you didn't go around and say, man, great job, you're doing wonderful. You said, here's the standard, meet the standard, correct?
You know, you just said that very interesting thing. The system of rating of any activity on this planet, it's already lost.
Mm-hmm.
And why is it lost? That Americans as a state, they decided that this state is just they can do whatever they want to do and never get punished. They never get they can hang up a president of the sovereign state on some kind of false accusations, that they can go into any country on the ideas that they impose. Same thing with Libya.
Yeah.
And everywhere, wherever there was an American footprint, take a look what happened, what you leave behind yourself. You left war, you left destruction, poverty, hunger. Now we ask you, compare us, Russia, with those Americans and your activities, what you did. The whole history where a Russian soldier took his foot. Russians were building schools. They brought in civilizations. Russians were giving plants, industry, working places. In the same way as soldiers that were trained, they had a, you know, just like a Russian soldier had a standard. Minimum push-ups, minimum pull-ups, standard, okay, and excellence. And any soldier that you ever give a task and say you have to do this or that, for excellent level, they do that. Of course, he wants to say, "Hey, you did a good job." This soldier is ready to go, in this case, till the very end. Your situation is this. You can take a look at what takes place and you get surprised. Previous presidents, they brought to your army all transgenders, LGBT people, unclear system. And now we have a question. How can people that psychologically, they're already not healthy thinkers, that already lost in a genesis, in a life as a whole, they got nothing together with God. How can these people be healthy during the war? What do you think? Can these people have feelings for a baby, be compassionate about a woman or adult, grown man or elderly, not to kill the soldier, keep his life, to give him a possibility to tell the story at home that, no, wait a minute, these enemies, they're not bad.
Yeah.
Can they have that compassion? Can they, do they have stability in their mind to follow all the human rules and laws? Can you do this or that?
Yeah.
No. Only the army that is based on the foundations and values that are sent by God, only that army can handle all these values. The same way as each soldier. They know they do pull-ups or push-ups. And because he did that correct, and with the word of God on his lips, he will be rewarded in this world and next one to come. The difference between us is that America has to get back to the traditional values that they had in the very beginning. Without that, you have to understand that there's a program in the internet, you can Google it in the internet. It's the video. The experiment over the mice. And they called it the Earth of 25, or the... They would put the mice, they feed them, give them water. When the mice have all the maximum comfort, they become to degrade. Then they come to the point where they start a same sex, and of course they have no. Then they eat each other, and at the end, all this whole cycle of this birth of the mice, and the cycle. The operation, they call it at Earth 25, every time finishes with a full destruction of the mice. And that operation, the experiment, they had it many times, numerous times. Each time was the same result. Same result.
Yeah.
Today, Americans are in that position, in that experiment at the last stage.
Yeah.
I can only advise to Americans one thing. Stop teaching the whole world. Stop thinking that you are the policeman of the whole world. Tell us how we need to live, what we need to do, what we need to eat, what we need to dress. Take care of your own country. Either this experiment that we call it America, it will be finished. As bad, as tragical as we speak about the mice and the rats. This is not a threat, unfortunately, it's the truth.
Right.
It's that you have to see in the future factors.
Let me suggest, though, there is a difference in the Russian mentality from the U.S. mentality. And it's been reflected in history. Now, the Western narrative about Russia is that Russia is a murderous state, a totalitarian, they kill all their people, that they kill civilians. Yet we go to World War II, the Great Patriotic War, and we look at the air operations on the Soviet side compared to the air operations on the U.S.-British side, where the U.S. and Brits routinely bombed civilian centers, killed civilians, upwards of 1 million. The Soviets didn't do that. They didn't do that in the Great Patriotic War. Jump ahead to the special military operation. Again, while the West claims Russia's killing civilians wantonly, if they were actually doing that in numbers, we'd have the names. We don't have the names. Whereas the United States continues to launch wars that kill millions of civilians. And, I hadn't thought about this till the other day. I had a conversation with one of the Russian artists. And in the mythology of the American West, where there was unexplored, and we went west to conquered the Indians, and in conquering them, we killed women and children, we massacred buffalo, and it was one of conflict. Whereas the East is like the West in America. The East was this unexplored, massive territory really 10 to 12 times the size of the American West. And what did Russia do? The Russians didn't go to kill and destroy. The Russians went and found a way to make peace and to bring these other didn't destroy those cultures. They kept those cultures largely intact. What is it about that Russian, I mean, this is through history. What is it about the Russian mentality that is different from the American mentality? What makes that difference?
See, you have said a very interesting thing. Any American that wants to say that Russian is a killer, they have to go to the internet and take a look at the history. Russians never brought nuclear bombs to any nation.
Correct.
Yes, they thrown 2 bombs. Russians, comparing to Americans, they didn't kill millions of Indians that were the American territory. They didn't took of reservations or camps.
Yeah.
Russians didn't give to those people those regions. They didn't give the blankets that were poison that they would be killed from the sickness. Russians always were more close to God because all their steps they measured by the love to God. Yes, they wanted to take over some geopolitical territories. Yes, they were fighting against those armies that went against them. But that war that was at any spot, at any state front line where the state was trying to go overtake certain territories to have some strategic points. But again, if this war would finish, did Russians use the same methods to kill the civilians and locals? No.
Yeah.
The difference is that Russians have already traditional culture that they have already rooted in traditions that they follow, faith in God. This all that Russians have it, and they go by thousands and thousands of years. Americans, this is a state that came from historical just recently. So, from the whole world, you have a bunch of people join the territory from different nations and countries, not, by the way, not the very best parts of those nations. These were people that were ready to kill, murder, destroy, rape to get a certain goal, to get rich. Profit. Yes, they had good people among them. I would be wrong if I say that they were all wrong, but this mass of people, they destroyed so much of Indians, so many Indians, all those tribes that were in America, living peacefully. They were historical owners of that land. Think about those Indians. If you want to pinpoint to Russian something, go back and look at your history. Today I have a question for you. If Russians are so bad, just notice that every year, every village we take, they have civilians and they don't go anywhere, they don't leave. They don't let those Ukrainians to take them out. And because they don't want to leave, the Ukrainians kill them and murder them. Calling them like expectors. The answer to your question. And immediately there's a question comes back. Will those people stay in those territories waiting for Russians? If Russians would be worse than the ones that were there.
Right. No, correct.
That's what speaks about we are not fighting for the land, for territory. We have our own territory we got to deal with and manage it. Russia's 1/6 of the planet of Earth. We have over 150,000 millions living on that territory. We have less per people per territory. We don't need those territories. We're not fighting for the piece of land.
Right.
But we are fighting for the interest and sovereignty of Russia and for our brothers. Russian-speaking brothers that are there and that are being destroyed, they're killed. They take their churches out, they take their language out, they take their ability to speak their language, their own native language. Yes, we fight for those. So the question comes in, so who's worse? Americans that are paid billions of dollars. They had a revolution and took over the legal power and brought the criminals to power, stole the money, started killing other people, and the people at Donetsk, or the Russians who said, no, we're not going to go any further.
Yeah.
So who is worse? Americans need to know that in that case, when they understand, they will like to hear us, we will be ready to get the truth.
No.
So we would coexist peacefully. In any other case, we have to understand that we Chechens have such a saying. If the war comes in, it's not going to happen that the blood is going to come out of me and milk from you. Americans need to hear that. If we're bleeding, believe me, Americans will be bleeding too. We are, more or less, we can go over the blood, what's coming out of us. You know, we are very strong. Americans are not ready to bleed. You love the sweet life too much.
Right.
Don't make your own selves to get rid of that life. Stop your leadership with your activity, with your actions. Explain to them. Come out, speak.
Yeah.
Of course, you as a citizen of the United States, you can say that. But I'm telling you, if you do all that is necessary to stop your leadership from what they would bring to the escalation of this conflict, of course, in the end, you will be hurt also, just like us.
That is my goal, to stop the bleeding, that nobody bleeds, that we can live in peace. General, unfortunately, they said my time is up. I'm going to have to let you go. Can't take you hostage. May God continue to bless you in your work. I know that you are, while you're a warrior, you are a man of peace, and you want peace, not war. So may God bless you in that, and you and your troops. Thank you for the time.
And I want to answer your words. I want to say, never, never. The real warrior who can fight well and is truly a warrior that serves God, they will never want war.
Yeah.
Usually, the wars are started by not fighters, not warriors. Because they start the war, we have to fight. Soldiers have to fight. I always don't want to have war. I don't want war. I want everybody to live at peace. That all men come back in the evening to their families. That will have peace in every family.
Yeah.
And I truly desire that. But unfortunately, we understand that we are fighting in our majority against evil, because where God's values are down, that's where the war will take place there. You cannot take God out of the country. We will win because we have God in the country. All humanity will win if we have God, because we will have a possibility to live in peace and love our children.
Yeah.
And go to sleep, go to bed with peace, wake up in the morning at our houses. Thank you very much.